few weeks back, I sent a group of men out to a nearby town to look for food. Only a few came back. And turns out that the others had been slaughtered by a crazy man. And get this, he was with a little girl. You see, everything happens for a reason.
Claire.
Ashley, she brought humor to it.
She just has some really great comedic timing. The way she reacts to the things around the world with a little bit of sarcasm, that teen kind of like trying to get a rise out of you.
Now watch your step as you're going out, because it's going to be a little...
It just brought a certain levity to the story that the story needed. You didn't even realize it needed it until she started doing some of that stuff.
Oh, I'm sure your friend will be missing this tonight.
Mm-hmm.
It's light on the reading, but it's got some interesting photos.
Now, Ellie, that ain't for kids.
Whoa! How the hell would he even walk around with that thing?
Get rid of that.
Well, hold your horses. I want to see what all the fuss is about. Oh, why are these all stuck together? I'm just fucking with you. Bye-bye, dude. Throughout the course of shooting over these past couple of years, Ellie and I have kind of morphed into each other, which I know sounds so cheesy. Neil always asks, he's like, well, what would you do in this situation?
I think the most important thing that Ashley brought is a sense of capability to Ellie's character that wasn't there in the beginning.
The very first thing we shot involved her being pulled out of a car and attacked, and Joel was supposed to go save her.
It was written that Ellie sort of was just kind of watching on the side, just waiting till he was done, and I was a little frustrated because I was like, well, if this were real life, I would do something.
We did a couple takes, and at some point she walked up to me and she said, I feel like I'd hit him.
So we added in a part, like, right there off the bat, she's not just this damsel in distress. Right there, she wanted to fight back from her very first day of shooting.
We didn't have it right initially. She needs to be more capable than initially we thought she would be, and actually that made us go back and rethink combat and rethink a lot of the areas in the game, and now she was going to take a much more active part.
Anything that requires, a lot of body movement, we do with the actors on the mocap stage. And we try as much as possible to use our actual principal actors, use their body motion as well as their voice. We capture it all at once there on the stage.
Having the actors perform as well as being recorded at the same time was imperative to get an accurate performance. Because every time you split up the performance in any way, you lose some of that magic where they did a gesture or they delivered the line a certain way. And those things have to be in sync, or there's just something subconscious that's like off-putting about the performance when you don't do it that way.
You are treading on some mighty thin ice here.
I'm sorry about your daughter, Joel, but I have lost people too.
You have no idea what loss is.
Everyone I have cared for has either died or left me. Everyone fucking except for you. So don't tell me that I would be safer with someone else, because the truth is I would just be more scared.
It gives you the most authentic, most realistic performance, because you're actually there, not just making your own choices, but making your own choices based on the other people that are involved in that scene. So you get this truly natural approach to things, and it shows up.
It's like theater in the round. You can do anything from any angle, and the smallest, most subtle thing we'll be able to pick up.
There's no place to hide. So you have to be as prepared as possible, because you have no idea which moments they're going to use.
There are these little improv moments and, little nuances that you get that probably isn't scripted, that just comes out of play, while they're performing. That mistake that is just blossomed into a really good idea.
Did we improv on The Last of Us? Yes. Yes, we did.
Doing this was a whole lot like being 5, playing in the backyard with a stick, and this is my machine gun, and and a pine cone is my hand grenade. It's all your imagination. I'm doing the exact same shit that I did 45 years ago. I just get paid for it now. We square.
We're square.
and get the fuck out of my town.
I don't do a lot of voiceover work, so for me, it was nice to be able to work off of your other actors. I can't imagine it working any other way.
I'd never done mocap before. I didn't know what to expect. The suits were crazy.
Yeah, the suit gave me wedgies. Like, deep wedgies that I had to pick out with my middle finger. Too much information.
Just how damn sexy I look in a motion capture suit. I look like 10-pound of sausage in a 5-pound casing in that thing, man.
Once you get past the fact that like everybody else and you look like weird clown people with these little dots and stuff, once you like give over to that, it really was pretty easy to make it just feel like you're in the moment and in the scene.
Everyone that was on this is a slam dunk. This isn't just another gig to them. And that creates a really cool energy for people to really start experimenting and playing jazz.
Floor is yours.
And action.
Fuck off! Hey!
Oh, let her go.
Don't worry, this is fixable. But I can't come with you.
Well, then I'm staying.
Ellie, I want Joel to watch over her.
Oh, no.
Bullshit, I
Absolutely
know
not.
Ellie.
This is going to.
I could just take her to the North Tunnel and wait for me there.
Jesus Christ.
Just cargo, Joel.
How do you know them?
You know, we craft the scene out until it has a good feel, and then we pass it off to animation to clean it up.
Real life motions don't necessarily always translate into gameplay.
There's something that's usually missing, so we have to, maybe enhance the gesture or enhance the shoulder movements or a breath that you want to be able to feel, but you don't really see it, so you can't really feel it unless you see it.
Is everything all right?
Yeah, everything's fine.
I could have him lean in here a little bit more, like this, take his hand down. When they're on stage, they don't necessarily have windows, so that weight of like really pushing and leaning in, it's something that we would have to accentuate. Give him a little bit more weight on that turn or put his head down a little bit more.
There's a lot of dialogue that gets said between the two characters. We have to bring that alive through animation, and we have what we're using as gestures.
Why would they mow down all these people?
Can't let everyone in.
If you turned off the sound, you'd know that they were talking to each other. And that really helps accentuate the relationship that the two have together. We have certain animations that play in the beginning of the game on Ellie. She's traveling with Joel, who she doesn't really know. There's a lot of gestures to make her look nervous, just her overall stance. Later on in the game, they develop a relationship through the animation, not just the dialogue. You can see that she's more comfortable around him. If that reads well with the player, then, we're doing our job. You want her to look scared when she gets a gun. You want her to look scared of the gun.
So if she's gonna aim, she wouldn't be like super trained aim. She would be more like some scared. But at the same time, it needs to look cool and feel cool to the player that plays.
It's really just these little tiny details that we're doing, and it's coming across. It's working out well.
We don't do facial capture, we don't track eye movements on stage, it's just the motion capture data. Everything that you see on the faces is hand keyed. As you can see, this is all of her mocap data. And so when I'm doing something like this, I go back and forth to the performance that she was giving, and I watch just this section over and over and over again. So this is our default face. I can make everything super extreme and make her all squinty and angry, turn her frown down. I can open her mouth, stick her tongue out. It's listen, watch. Okay, where's her mouth at this point? Like, is it open? Is she making like a grimace?
About Tess, I don't even know.
Here's how this thing's gonna play out. You don't bring up Tess. Ever. Matter of fact, we just keep our histories to ourselves.
We shoot all of it to just get the body motion, and then we'll do a second pass with the cameras.
The scene's playing back on an overhead projector, but it's also playing back on a monitor that's attached to my rig.
Sean and I would go to the stage and motion capture the camera filming the scene, and so he would get a whole wide shot, a whole close-up for the whole scene.
You know, you can change your lenses, you can use your standard 35, 85, 50s, whatever. All that sort of live action camera cinematography, you can apply it on stage.
We make sure to go back in and add flaws.
We keep the confinements of the room so the camera can't go past a certain wall, because then we have this cheated perspective. If the cameraman bumps into the wall, we keep it. You know, missing focus hits when you're pulling focus, going too close to a character and reframing, those little moments in there kind of keeps it very cinema verite.
If everything was too perfect, you wouldn't be able to put your finger on it, but you'd be able to feel it. It would just feel off.
It's very much about grounding it, despite having, you know, the option to do whatever we want.
Being able to place the cameras anywhere we want after the motion capture gives us both advantages and disadvantages. The biggest advantage is it means that we just have to nail the best performances we can get, and the luxury is that we can always swap it.
The 3D world gives you limitless opportunities with cameras and movements, exposures, all that stuff.
Most of these cameras are sort of set up like real world cameras. So we have lens, we have f-stop that will create the depth of field. We have aperture to, you know, set our film back and all that stuff. A master, and then I have my close-ups, my over the shoulders, sort of just like a live action production. Let's go to camera 30 at the 23.458. Then I get that kind of weird, you know, bend across his back. The closer I bring the camera, the more bend I get, which is, you know, doesn't look right. It doesn't look as, it looks less cinematic than if I do that, which flattens the whole thing. And I'm trying to also catch Ellie. Like if you scrub a little more, you know, catch her in the back here. So I want a longer lens and that kind of stuff.
Since I've only had experience working with live action before I got into video games, it was a kind of a cool adjustment to be able to have this extra flexibility in post, to swap a line of dialogue for something different, even though that's not what the actors said at that time, and to be able to still have a close-up on them while they said it. You get to make it probably more perfect than you could ever make it in live action.
How far are we gonna take
As far as it needs to go. Where was this lab of theirs?
Because our actors are both the voice and their body, they get to play, they get to try things, they get to work with our director to kind of come up with new ideas, or even our director will have a new idea on the spot that wasn't there in the script, but realizing when he sees it, oh, well, this would actually be better, this might feel better. And those changes all just happen organically there on the set.
He could even lead straight into his thing. It's like, no shit, yep, Tyler wanted to do that, so we rented 2 Harleys and drove cross country.
Keep it pretty succinct, like we got the bikes, rode them cross country. Cool.
It's shocking to me that this is Neil's first time directing.
There was a specific tone and a specific approach that Neil and Bruce wanted to take with this. It just came down to, there's nobody knows the story better than you, and then there's nobody that knows these characters better than you. Why don't you just do this?
He and I actually had a conversation about it. He says, I think I'm gonna try this myself, and I'm not sure. Neil was fantastic.
The floor is yours. Okay, so remember, you've been running away from this turret-mounted truck. If you come to this dead end, you're going to look up and see a potential way out. And action.
Check it out.
I mean, his writing is honest, and it's dangerous, and it's natural.
And I love his economy of words. He doesn't hit everything on the nose, so it leaves it open for you to interpret and bring some nuances and things like that.
The entire process is collaborative, but really it's led by Neil's willingness to change and flow and decide something doesn't work, you know, fix it right there in the moment. And it is something that's very foreign to the way that TV and film is done now, where everything has been micromanaged by the time you get it to the table read, and no one wants you to change anything, and everything's very precious and has been rewritten with notes from 20 people in suits, and you can't do that just anywhere in entertainment these days.
Yeah, I want to make sure. I think I swung too far over to this way, and now it's a little bit of making jokes about it, and I need to bring it back to center a little bit. There's one scene in the game where we see Joel not as a ruthless survivor, but as a father. I knew from the very beginning that he was going to lose his daughter, and I just told Neil, I was like, when that day comes for us to shoot that, I need a heads up. About a week before, he said, it's time. We're going to do that scene. I was like, okay. because I knew that I was going to have to go to this place that you don't really want to go to as an actor. You want to find some aspect of reality that you can empathetically draw from, you know?
Troy and I were both kind of just like walking around for a while and just kind of getting into the zone, and well, my grandpa died when I was 8. He was like my dad, and so that's always what I use to get into that place.
You know, I started recalling all those memories and starting pulling up all those feelings, and they're just right underneath the surface. When I walked back in, everyone realized that something was different. They kind of like calmed down, you know.
You could feel the energy just like drop a little bit more.
It was brutal.
I lose my shit. I mean, just completely break down.
Don't do this, please, God, no. Oh, God, no.
The soundstage was deathly still.
It was the first take, and I felt really good about it. And it's like Neil said, okay, let's do it again. And so you do it again, and automatically you feel like you're manufacturing because you're trying to go back to that place, and you know you're in that actor nightmare of trying to get back to that reality. And we go through it again in 5th and 6th and 7th take, and I'm just exhausted. I'm crying between takes, and I'm looking at Neil going, this is really, really hard. And finally, after like the 8th or 9th take, he said, all right, I think we got it. I was like, oh, thank God. And I went outside, and I was just jacked up for the rest of the day. I mean, a wreck emotionally. But we got it. Then 2 weeks later, he calls me. And he says, so we need to reshoot a scene. I'm like, cool, what scene are we doing? And he just looks at me. I said, dude, don't do this to me.
And you can either at that moment throw your hands up in the air and say, fuck this, and walk away. Or you can say, okay, this is an opportunity to get it more right.
I'm like, okay, all right, yeah, you don't think you got it? I'm gonna show you that you got it. We've got it in the can. And so we go through it again, and it just feels fake, feels artificial. And Neil goes, go through it again. We start doing it again, and I'm getting madder and madder with each take. And finally, about the 4th take, Neil comes over to me, and I love him so much. He goes, so I'm picking up on some resistance. I was like, you're damn right you're picking up on some resistance. We've got this in the can already, and we're just wasting our time, and we're wasting all this effort and energy. And then he started talking me through the scene. And he was like, what I need you to do is I need you to just strip yourself of all these ideas, and I need you to hit this beat, and this beat, and this beat, and this beat, which just makes it sound so mechanical, and it's such an emotional scene. So we start going through it, and literally I am mindlessly doing these things at this point.
Okay? I know it hurts, baby. I know. So I'm gonna lift you up. I'm gonna get you over here. Come on, baby. Come on, work with me, please. God, baby. Sarah. Sarah! Don't do this to me, baby. Don't do this to me, baby. Come on. Come on.
And he stops, he goes, now we got it. And I realized that the reason why I wanted that first take to work was because I wanted everyone to look at me and go, wow, what an actor. And that's not what the scene needed.
Those moments where you just have to sort of calm your ego down and just go back and do your work.
That scene actually works, not because of me, but in spite of me. And that really is the marker and definition of working with a truly good director.
There are many like it, but this one is yours. Why don't you have a seat?
All right, everybody calm down.
Thanks, guys.
It's extraordinarily humbling, and I mean, it's kind of beautiful in a way that as creators we get to do something that's true to our hearts, and then other people pick up on that same sort of passion.
We're taking all these risks with the game and making a more complicated game, a more nuanced story than we've ever done before, and
It's something we really wanted to play, but we had no idea what the public, how they would react to it.
And of course, it was really, really exciting for us to see that people didn't just buy into it, but they were really excited about the world and the story and the themes and the subtext that we were putting into it. Really, people just got the game 100%.
You know, as an artist, as a creator, you want people to love your work. You want to cause some emotional reactions. So it just kind of leads us and encourages us to keep going in the directions that inspire us.
The Last of Us: American Dreams, the graphic novel we released through Dark Horse, co-created by Faith Erin Hicks, the co-writer and amazing artist on that comic book. And it introduces the character of Riley. And in it, we get to see kind of Ellie coming out of her shell, and she starts taking on these attributes from Riley, but it's the first day they meet. And it became really interesting to us to say, okay, months later, after these two have become best friends, and they've had this falling out, where does that relationship go?
In discussing ideas, it's like, what if we got to play through that kind of relationship? What if we saw that relationship?
And it gives us an opportunity to test out various mechanics and storytelling ideas that maybe we couldn't test on the scale of the full game, but doing it in a smaller time frame allows us to try out these ideas and say, okay, that's interesting. How did that work?
The comic book was kind of a great way to see a little bit of what Ellie and Riley's relationship was. So when we set out to design the world, we already had a point of reference that there had already been some great work done just in terms of some of the visuals and some of the language between Riley and Ellie.
I think we had a sound story pretty early on that we felt was compelling enough to okay, that justifies us moving forward with the idea of single-player DLC. Now you have a team of some burnt-out, frazzled people that you're trying to say, like, okay, guys, let's go again. Can we do it again? And that's a lot. That's a lot to ask of anybody after 3.5 years of grind.
We kind of right away knew we wanted to focus on Ellie. We wanted to tell a little bit more about who she was before all this. We also felt like some people were wondering what happened in that time span between when Joel gets really injured and then you play as Ellie. And I felt like I wanted to meet Riley. Like I want to know her. I read a little bit from like the comics, and you kind of had this image in your head in the character, but you kind of really don't meet them until you start to see them. And once you get the actor in there, once you get these people, they really start to come out.
All this time I thought you were dead. Yeah. It was interesting sort of this time around to be with someone new. When Yanni came in during casting, I was like, that's totally who I saw in the comic book. That's totally her, that's totally who I heard. You need to cast her.
I was a bit intimidated to kind of come on to something that's so big. It's different, Ashley started with it and you're, coming in, I guess, as a sophomore, you know what I mean? Like, you feel like, oh gosh, am I gonna fit in? And then, will I really be able to live up to the standard that's so high?
With The Last of Us, we got to see the events that led to who Joel is during the game. We never get to see that with Ellie. With Ellie, we're picking her up at the outset of the journey. What this DLC really allowed us to do is focus on Ellie's life prior to that journey. And we get to see, she's just a kid, ultimately. Despite, the journey she's about to go on, you get to see her have fun, and you get to see her playing with her best friend, and you get to see her be romantic with someone.
You definitely see a very different side to Ellie. Being with another teenage girl sort of brings out that playfulness and that silliness that you see glimpses of that with Joel, but it's different hanging out with a 40-year-old dude.
You know Ellie as this really tough, strong kid that has gone through so many crazy things and has seen so many things, to this other side of her, a little bit more vulnerable, softer side of her through the eyes of Riley.
So it's a really interesting relationship there because you get to see somebody who really influenced who Ellie is and taught her how to survive and be strong.
And then you see that playful Ellie, and you see the events that are shaping her and changing her, and
how she loses the one person in this world that she cares for. And then you understand why she's willing to fight tooth and nail to not lose Joel. She's already lost this person that she loved. She's not about to let it happen again. There was a lot of gameplay where we kind of challenge ourselves to say, okay, how do we add tension? How do we add core mechanics to two teenage girls that have snuck out of this military dorm and are being playful at a mall?
There are large portions where there is no combat, where we're really focusing on the narrative connection between you and an allied character. What's really important to us is how we parallel the player's emotional experience in the characters and vice versa. We want you to always be feeling the way that the characters are feeling.
What the fuck are you looking at?
We look at contrast a lot whenever we're trying to create pacing of things. And you can't have your lights without your darks, your highs without your lows. So while we're looking at the Ellie storyline, we also want to contrast that with what's happening in the desperation of Joel. So the combat is kind of an extension of the obstacles, the barriers inside of her way that she needs to overcome. Something new we wanted to do with the combat this time was we introduced David's people, sort of the cannibals in the university. By pulling David's crew into the mall, we also thought it would be intriguing to create some new technology where we had the infected fight the humans.
We developed a number of setups, combat setups, during the DLC where the player has the opportunity to pit those two sides against each other. And for us, this was really interesting because this allows you to use one faction as a weapon against the other.
Now you're able to use these distractions almost as bait or as lures. So that creates this whole new way to think about a combat space and to think about ways that you move around. But it still drives home that idea that it's a desperate world and you're trying to survive in it.
The main themes that we're playing with, I think, are love and loss and, on some level, devotion. What lengths do you go to protect the ones that you care about?
If you never know if you're going to die tomorrow, in the next hour, in the next few minutes, every moment spent with those you love is a moment to cherish.
The relationship between Ellie and Joel, it dealt with survival, it dealt with loyalty, and ultimately it dealt with love, the love of a parent to a child or a child to a parent. The DLC is not that different.
In this world, all you really have are your relationships and your friends. I mean, that becomes everything. And I think that's sort of reiterated in the DLC.
One of the great things about Last of Us was how much people related to Ellie and enjoyed Ellie and saw her as this strong character. And here we'll get to see how her time with Riley has become that and something that propelled her to be able to go on this journey with Joel.